Okay, so I just finished the section on orientation. Now we go about training. So what is training? Training is basically activity provided by the business to improve the employee's knowledge, skill, and experience so that the employee can do a better job. Hey, two of you, okay? A little bit, just a little bit. Yeah. Next time more, or out. So, that's training. It improves skills, abilities, and knowledge in order to be able to do a better job. You begin with a simple question. Is there a need for training? And you answer by first focusing on, hey, what are the organization's strategic goals? You want to know what you want to be, and you want to know where you're heading. Once you know your organization's goals, you need to know and understand what tasks must be completed. In other words, what do you need to do to get your goals, to achieve your organizational goals? So, first of all, basically say, hey, where you want to be. Second, how you're going to get there. And then you're asking the question, what behaviors are necessary for the job? What behaviors? What do you need to do for a waitress? Yeah, right? What you need to do to get the job done. And the last piece is, what are the deficiencies? What are the deficiencies? Basically, it means what skills are needed and what do they have? What is it they have? What is it they need? And what's the skills gap or skills deficiency? For example, you're hiring a waitress and you will have a lot of international customers, all of them who can speak English, but the waitress does not speak English. So basically, you will or she will need a training in English language. Well, better yet, you should have hired the waitress who already knows English. But if she doesn't, then you say, hey, you have to go through the training. Or you say, look, we're looking for a waitress. You don't know English. We will hire you, and you'll have to have a good working English in, let's say, 3 or 4 months for the coming season in November. Okay? And you have to study and have to do well. And if you don't, sorry, you'll be out. We'll have to find another waitress. Okay? Same thing for receptionists. Same thing for many other jobs. Sometimes you hire a person knowing well and understanding that they don't have everything you need, but that they will learn on their own during the job, or you will provide them some basic training. For example, when I was working in a major corporation, I had worked already for 3 years. They asked me to do a special automation software which will generate contracts based on filling out a form, and the whole software was written in Visual Basic language. They said, well guys, I haven't done this. They said, look, we're going to give you a 1-week training, and in 1 week you should easily learn how to do everything. I said, okay, no problem. So I went 5 days, and in 5 days I learned everything I needed to know to get my job done for the next 1 full year. So that's a very simple example where they show you what needs to be done and how it needs to be done, and they give me a little manual book. They provide me a little training, and then I do a few exercises. Well, this is exactly what we're doing here in the next class in accounting. I'm guiding the students. I give give them a few examples, then they have to do the examples on their own, and I help them with the examples. And of course, at the end, we've got to have a quiz or a midterm and a final. And the only difference between accounting and, in this case, Visual Basic, is that accounting takes about 3, 4, 6 months to learn really well. That's why it's difficult to learn accounting on the job. You need to understand the concept. It takes 3, 6 months of hard, dedicated, devoted work. Okay? And we're going to get to that in a minute. But the basic idea here is you find what is the deficiency, meaning what they don't have but they need of skills, knowledge, or abilities, and you provide them with that. It's called training. And training's got 2 fundamental forms, or 2 ways. We divide it. It's called on-the-job training and off-the-job training. On-the-job training means you do the training while you're working and doing the job. The example will be, for example, and you should be doing this during your internship job rotation. In a job rotation, you begin working, let's say, at a hotel. Number 1, first week you work at the parking lot. Week number 2, you work at the door, carrying the luggage, okay? I don't know if it's called the bellboy. Number 3, you work at the, cleaning the rooms, function as a maid. Number 4, you go at the reception. So, 1 week here, 1 week at the reception, 1 week at the door, 1 week cleaning the rooms. Oh yeah, 1 week at the swimming pool, then 1 week at the gym, then 1 week at wherever, the spa center. Then you can go in the back office, do 1 week the laundry, or do 1 week the accounting for the hotel. Do 1 week the reservation system. The basic idea of rotation is that you go from one position to the next position, to the next position, to the next position, for a sufficiently long period of time, maybe a week, maybe a month, so that you can actually learn the job. And this is a quick and relatively efficient way for you to learn the job. The other one is called understudy assignment. In an understudy assignment, it's fairly straightforward. They attach you to someone who's got knowledge and experience, and basically they say, hey, you work with this old guy who's been in the company for 30 years and he knows everything. You work with him, you work for him, you do whatever he tells you to do, and listen to what he says because he knows what he's doing. And basically, you're working a big part of his job in doing what he is doing, and he's helping you learn and train while you're doing it. So, you have a seasoned veteran. Seasoned means experienced, okay? Experienced veteran. Alright? Veteran, someone who's been a long time on that particular position. So this is on-the-job training. They have off-the-job training. Off-the-job means they send you somewhere else. For example, you will have a waitress and she's going to have evening work hours, and during the day you send her off the job to study English language. So every day from 10 o'clock till 12 o'clock she's going to have English language class. Or if she comes to work for lunch at 11 o'clock, her class is going to be from, let's say, 9 o'clock in the morning till 11 o'clock in the morning. And she goes to study. Same thing applies, of course, for the receptionist or any other employee. So you will have, number 1, classroom lectures. These are lectures specifically designed to give you specific technical knowledge. You may have classroom, you actually get classroom lectures here on bartending, I would assume, right? You study bartending here, and different drinks, and how to mix drinks, and how much to put this and that, and all the other things. So, you may easily have a bartending course to study, and it could be a classroom. You can get the training in form of films and videos, and also documentary. They provide you a nice DVD with a video training material. And you watch the video and see how it's done. Yeah, it's not so easy to learn cooking. In the classroom, but you can get a 1-week cooking class where they explain everything in the classroom for you, whatever the basics of cooking are. Then they'll give you films and videos. Say, look, watch these 3 videos to see how you cook these things. And then you're going to actually go in the kitchen and do it. So you may have what's called simulation exercise. Learning a job by actually performing the work. You actually go in the kitchen, you actually do some real cooking, and again, you actually eat what you cook to see how you've done. I guess you also do this part here. Well, I mean, not in this class, but in your other classes. And the last one is called vestibule training. And you're learning the task on the same equipment that you'll actually use, but in a simulated environment. In other words, without actually, let's say, serving a real customer. So you're going to be in the restaurant, there are no customers between 3 and 5 o'clock, and you're going to be learning on the real equipment just the way you will do a real dinner, but you're going to be cooking just for 3 or 4 of you so that you actually learn how to cook, learn how to use it. So that's called vestibule training. Okay? So these are different forms of training. Let me see what else we have. On the job, off the job. Yeah, not very many things. And now we move to the last 3 steps. And they are about retaining employees, in other words, how to keep them. It's about evaluation. They call it performance management. Performance management is the same as evaluation. You evaluate their work, decide whether they're doing good, whether they're doing bad, where they may need some basic improvement, and part of retaining is called compensation, which is money, which is salary, and as I will be explaining, also a number of other things. So, usually a company will need what's called a performance management system. And a performance management system is simply a system or a way to evaluate an employee performance. For example, it's coming August, and the department will evaluate my work and decide if they'll continue my contract from October 1, or if they will terminate. Terminate means let the contract expire, and when the contract expires, I'll have to go. So they'll have to make a basic evaluation. For any employee, you have to evaluate whether they do it. Now, if it's a waitress and you're the manager, okay, you can get to see them at work all the time, you already know, okay? But if you're a general manager of a hotel, and you may have 40 employees, maybe you have 5 maids, maybe you have 7 receptionists, maybe you have a bunch of people working at the restaurant, you got parking attendants and the pool attendants and all the other. You have 40 people, you don't see them all the time. You need every time, meaning every year or from time to time, every 6 months, to find out how they are doing. Now, you can simply talk to them, you can talk to their little manager, okay? You can ask other employees to see how they're doing, but one way or another, you have to evaluate them. Now, evaluation in English is the same as appraisal. Appraisal means to make an evaluation. In a simple way to evaluate, again, you got a whole bunch of methods, is just a simple written essay. You ask them what they do, how they do, if they're doing well, what they think they do well, what they think they're not doing well, what they think they should improve on, where they are having different challenges. Basically ask them and say, hey, tell us what you think about it. So that's a simple way. Another way is what's called critical incidents. And in those, you evaluate critical behaviors, something which is very important for the job. If it's for a waitress, how is she treating the customers? So what is the customer's response to the waitress? So you have lots of examples, and it is based entirely on the behavior. You look and you observe the behavior and see how they're doing. If they're doing well or not well, what's going on. Next one is called bars. Let's see what the bars is. It's tricky. Behavioral or behaviorally anchored, let's see, rating scale. So you provide a specific rating scale, and for the rating scale is going to be excellent, very good, good, unsatisfactory, and poor. And you evaluate, let's say, the waitress. Is she coming on time or not coming on time? Is she quick to serve the customers? So how quick she is. If she fast, if the customer is satisfied. So you find out whatever the behavior is, and you rank it from excellent, good, very good, good, poor, to whatever it might be, unsatisfactory or unacceptable. You provide a scale, you provide 4, 5, or 6 different important criteria, and each one you try to evaluate. You have also what's called, they have here, 360-degree appraisal. This is the most comprehensive. This is the most thorough. You investigate every part of the behavior of the employee. You investigate their attitude, their opinion, whether they're learning, whether they're training, whether they're improving. You ask to find out what their colleagues are thinking about them. So you ask their workmates or teammates. You ask their managers. You ask other people. So you ask a lot of people, and you find a thorough and very complete evaluation of their behavior. Another one's going to be management by objective. And in management by objective, you focus on end results. And it is results oriented. For example, if they're going to be evaluating me, they're going to just find out, have you really learned accounting or you haven't learned accounting? You see, sometimes in accounting it's very tricky. You can make students happy, give them easy exams, give them easy grades, and they don't learn a lot, okay? But everyone's happy. But happiness doesn't mean knowledge. The other way to do it is you do hard exams, you do exercises. A lot of students fail, but eventually those that survive, they learn, and they learn really well. Again, it doesn't mean that they're happy. Probably, if they will be learning, most of them will not be happy. Most of them will have to do too many homeworks. Will have to do a lot of preparations. So there is an inherent conflict between having a satisfied and happy student on the one hand and having a competent and good student, someone who's really learned. Okay? So it is very important. Sometimes in universities they evaluate the professor on how happy the students are. And guess who are the happy students? Students are happy when they don't learn anything, when they don't study much, when they're not doing a lot of things, when the exams are easy, when everything's easy, when everything's fun. Unfortunately, it doesn't achieve the goals, okay? And the opposite could be quite true. Sometimes students will hate a particular professor. He is the hardest one, he's the most difficult to deal with, he always locks the door on the minute, he fails every student who does not have homework. One time, they fail, so the professor is usually hated. They don't like him. Everybody doesn't like him. Yet, he's considered to be the best professor because when you take the course with him, if you pass, this means you learn and you learn very well. Of course, many students in accounting, usually 1/4 to 1/3, as many as 1/2, will just fail, and that's normal. That's the way it's supposed to be. For anyone who doesn't study and doesn't prepare, that's how it's supposed to be. The point I'm trying to make is that you may have different forms of evaluation, and if you evaluate one way, the employee could look excellent, and if you evaluate the other way, the employee could look terrible. And the opposite could be true. So that you have to be very careful which method you're going to use and what will be the actual criteria. Because sometimes you may use the wrong method or the wrong criteria and you accomplish one goal, like making students happy, but sacrificing a completely different goal, which is learning and education. Because sometimes in business as well as universities, goals are conflicting. Same thing as in hospital. You may want to keep the customer really happy and do a whole bunch of tests and other things and all this, but it doesn't mean you've done a great medical job, okay? You can also give them a lot of pills and they can do pills and medicine and all that stuff. Or you can just say, look man, you got a problem. You're fat. And you got a blood problem, and you got a sugar problem, you're close to diabetes, you gotta get your act together. You gotta eat half, you gotta stop the sugars, and you gotta get your ass moving and start exercise, okay? Right? So, now, we know the one answer, we know the other answer. This is the right approach that will actually cure the sick person, all right? But sometimes the sick person is sick because he's fat, because he's lazy. He doesn't work. He wants to sit back, eat popcorn, and watch TV, and maybe play games, right? He doesn't want to hear that he's got to eat less, he's got to get rid of dessert, and he's got to exercise every day for 2 hours, okay? So here you got the conflict between really curing the patient and really providing a real thing as opposed to just give him a pill which is going to lower his blood pressure but it's not going to cure anything. He's still going to get sicker and sicker. Okay? So it's very tricky when you evaluate which method you're going to use. And there's one other method which is called multi-person. And multi-person is very simple. You got, let's say, 7 waitresses. You compare first to the second. first to the third, first to the fourth. You compare every waitress up against every other. And you say, oh yeah, she's better than this. Oh yeah, she's better than this. Oh yeah, he's better than her. Oh yes. So you basically compare everybody with everybody else, and you rank them according to who did how many better comparison and who did how many worse comparison. And in this case, you try to keep the better ones and you try to get rid of or train the worst ones. So that's on the performance. Let's see what else. Addressing poor performance. You see, here it is. You got a poor performance, you got a black person in the middle. This is how images are created. And they're created in such a way. Now in this case, she may be the manager. She may be the best working person. But this is how the picture is created. So, let's see what we have here. And the other one, no. All right. 11. All right, that's not good, not good. So, employees might be doing a poor job for a number of reasons. Number one reason is simple, lacking skills. You have a skills problem. All right, don't get it. All right. Maybe you'll have to move a little bit farther, okay? So, employees may have a skills problem. Now, let me jump back to the next problem. Next problem is called discipline problem. Here, we definitely got a discipline problem. Students talking to each other, students not paying attention, they playing the iPad, okay? So, employees can perform poorly because they don't have enough skills. They may want to work hard, they may try to work hard, but if the waitress doesn't know any English, she can't serve well the foreigner. It's a fundamental skills problem. Same thing with the receptionist. If they don't know language, if they can't speak with the customer, it's a problem which is fundamental, related to skill, and they need to improve their skills. So, skills problem number one. Discipline problem is another one. In a discipline, they come sometimes a little bit late for work. When they come late for work, they sometimes play their mobile and this and that. You can see this here and there. You know, they sit and work, but they're just playing their mobile. In my home country, we have a lot of salespeople. They work at a shop. They're just a salesperson. They work at the shop, and it's European culture, not here. European culture, we got a nice girl. She's smoking a cigarette and drinking a coffee. Is this happening here? There, it happens a lot. You can walk street with shops, and when you look at 20 shops, you're going to see 5 or 10 girls outside smoking a cigarette and drinking a coffee. And they hate to see a customer walk in because they got to leave their coffee and they got to leave the cigarette to serve the customer. Customer is a nuisance. He's just bothering her. She's relaxing outside, she's sitting, she's having a good time. Oh yeah, she's talking with the girl in the next shop. You know, they're just talking, having a good time, while smoking a cigarette, drinking a coffee, okay? Maybe they got themselves set up with a laptop, watching a movie or pictures or whatever, and the customer comes in and she's got to, you know, cut off her fun and get to serve the customer who just walks in, hangs in for 2 minutes, and doesn't buy anything, leaves the shop, and you know, that's part of a discipline problem. Another part of a discipline problem in major corporations is, yeah, 12 o'clock comes for lunchtime, they leave maybe 5 or 10 minutes early for lunch. And then after lunch they come 5 or 10 minutes early. So you make 5 minutes early break, then you come 5 minutes late, you come 5 or 10 minutes early late for work, you leave 5 minutes early, and suddenly, when you add up with lunch break, suddenly the employee is cutting the work short by half an hour. Another type of a simple discipline problem is they sit on the desk and they play Facebook. It's so easy for me to walk around the university from the, looking at administration, whether it's in accounting or some other department, and the employees are just doing Facebook during work, okay? So that's another type of a discipline problem. Let's see what other problem. You may simply have a training problem. In a training problem, you don't train the employees well. You don't train them enough. Maybe all they need is just a little bit of extra training. Maybe they're not familiar with your work environment. And basically, a simple training will resolve the problem. Another type, the most common type of problem in any work environment is usually motivation problem. Most employees are not motivated. Most employees are looking for a job, all right? You all look for a job. And when you get a job, all they're doing is collect the salary. They're just getting the salary. They're not working hard. They don't care about working hard. They don't care about the business. They are doing minimum amount of work. Never anything more than the minimum that's required. They never work hard. They never sacrifice. They never devote. And that's a fundamental motivation problem. They don't care. Okay? That's happening most of the times. And it's happening especially for employees which don't like the job, or which is the job which is not their real specialty. Example, maybe you studied and learned to become, I don't know, a general manager of a hotel, and instead they want you to stay at the pool and clean the pool. And say, well, I didn't study and work so hard to get this kind of a job. I went to university to get a real good job, not to get some kind of a low quality, low paying job. And usually, the employee is not happy and doesn't really care, okay? Now, the alternative would be the employee to do a good job, to be noticed, and get, after even a month, a quick promotion or get moved to the next position, and next position, and next position, so that within 6 months, they're fairly high up, or within 2 or 3 years, depending on how big it is. But the most common problem is motivation, and that's also needs to be addressed. Sometimes you can try to inspire the employees, sometimes you just can't. Same thing here in classroom. Sometimes, a professor could be good enough to encourage most students to study, but most of the time, no matter what I do, many students will not care, right? It happens here, it happens anywhere, in any country, in any university. You always have 10, 20, 30%, 40% of the students which are simply not motivated to study, don't care about studying. They didn't even go to the university to study. They went to the university to socialize, right? To have fun and enjoy and have a good time. About employees, they get a job only to get a salary. They didn't care about it. It's just a job, okay? When it's a job, you don't put your heart to it. You don't put your mind to it. You don't put your passion to it. You just show up and collect the salary, okay? Here, and it's part of discipline, you got two different problems. One is called absenteeism, And the other one is called presenteeism. Let's explain absenteeism. Absenteeism is employee was having a great evening. He got drunk with his friends, okay, all night. He went to bed at 4 o'clock, woke up at 8, and he couldn't even, wake up. He has a hangover from drinking too much alcohol, and calls and says, "Boss, I'm feeling very sick. I'm having some problem. I can't come today. If I get better, maybe I'll come in the afternoon," right? And then he sleeps all the way till afternoon, 1 o'clock, he's in good shape, okay, he has a good lunch, and he shows up at 2 o'clock for work, says, "Boss, I'm feeling a little better now. Let me see what I can do for some job," okay? So that's one way to do it, all right? That's called absenteeism. Or, "Boss, my aunt died, we got a funeral to make," they always make up some story. So you got people who always make up stories about why they can't go to work, or why they have to come late for work, or why they have to leave for work. Say, "Boss, I'm having this training class, I'm training for whatever, I gotta go, I gotta leave 4 o'clock every Wednesday for the next month, or for the next 2 months, okay? So that's absenteeism. They don't come to work, or don't come regularly to work, or the opposite. They regularly find excuse not to come to work, all right? They're really good at that, okay? You need to learn and understand that these employees have a habit of absenteeism. And if they have a habit of absenteeism, you should basically get rid of them, okay? Or tell them, "Look, you missed your job one more time, you're out," okay? So that's absenteeism. And now back to presenteeism. Presenteeism, well, he's at work, he's present, he's as if doing a job, but not really doing the job. One example will be they could be SMSing, they could be chatting, they could be doing their Facebook, they could be doing other personal things, they could be checking the stock market, their investment portfolio. Okay, they could be going to their favorite blog. They could be doing a whole bunch of other things. A good way is just walking around the corridors and talking with this person and talking with that person. Very common in corporation is people just to talk in the office with all sorts of different people. They go to a meeting, but they go 10 minutes early for the meeting to talk to other people. They get themselves coffee. When the meeting is over, they continue to talk with one person and then another person, and they spend most of the time in the office just wasting the time. So that's all absenteeism. And let's see what we have here. I think it's the stuff. We come to the next mini section, which is compensation and benefits. Compensation sometimes we call pay. Pay means the money they give you for the work. When we say in English compensation, it usually means not only the pay, but it also means other benefits. Example will be healthcare insurance, okay? Another very common type of, it's not really a benefit, but it's part of the compensation is vacation. We call it paid vacation. You have 2 weeks of paid vacation, or 3 weeks, or 4 weeks, or if you're in France, you get 5 weeks. In Germany, how many weeks you usually get? What, 3, 4?
Yeah, 4. I guess.
About 4. What about Finland? How many you get in Finland? Huh? 4. All right. So if you're in Finland, you get 4 weeks of regular standard vacation. If you're in Germany, you get 4 weeks. If you're in Bulgaria, the whole country is 3 weeks. What about Thailand? How many weeks of standard vacation? You have 1, 2, 3. How many weeks? You get any vacation?
Oh,
Huh?
going.
4? 3. Okay, so I'm told 3 weeks of vacation over here. So all of this is part of the pay, and you may have other benefits. Sometimes the benefit may be, oh yeah, like me having here a tiny little benefit, lunch downstairs. Every day we got a lunch downstairs. Of course, in terms of money, it's small, but it's a benefit, okay? I don't have to go and cook and think about everything. I just show up 12:30 or 1 o'clock, and I have a lunch. It's already cooked, okay? So that's a benefit. Sometimes they may have other little benefits like child care for a mother, okay? They may have a dinner, prepared dinner, so you finish work at 6 o'clock in the evening, and you can take dinner home, which is already cooked, so you don't have to eat McDonald's, okay? Or you don't have to cook at home for 2 hours. So we're getting back to this. What is level of compensation and benefits? Basically, the question is, what does the salary depend on? And the salary depends on many, many things. Let's see where we begin. Let's begin with what kind of business you're in. If you're in technology business, it's going to be one type of salaries. If you're working for a bank, it's going to be fairly good salary. If you're working for a financial institution, at the moment it's fairly good salary. Well, what about restaurant? If you're a waitress in the restaurant, it's probably not going to be very good salary. So you have specific industries which pay relatively well, especially based on the skill. For example, you're a doctor, medicine, okay? Or better yet, you make more money with teeth, dentistry, okay? Dentists make very good money, usually, everywhere, okay? So, your dentistry, oh, you must be making really good money. Or maybe you have a booming real estate market and you're a real estate agent. If you happen to be a real estate agent in a booming real estate market, okay, you're probably going to be making big money too, okay? So kind of business is very important. Another important is whether the business is unionized or not unionized. Is there a labor union or no labor union? There may be a special labor union for plumbers, which could raise a little bit salaries. You may have a special labor union for electricians, which would effectively raise salaries. Now, back in the old days, lawyers decided to say that, oh, you cannot practice and work as a lawyer unless you're certified by the government. But it's not by the government, it's by the other lawyers. So lawyers require certification, and certification is a form of labor unionization. The idea of a labor union is to exclude other employees from practicing your profession and from driving down wages. The biggest unions anywhere in the world are healthcare, where doctors prevent others from coming in the job. Oh, he's alternative, he's not certified, he doesn't have a degree, he didn't pass the board exam, whatever it is, to keep the competition out. If you got an industry where you can keep the competition out, you can get much higher salaries, okay? But if you can't keep the competition out, salaries are very low. Next one, whether the industry is labor intensive or capital intensive. It actually turns out that if it's more capital intensive, it usually pays a little better. And if it's relatively labor intensive, it doesn't pay better. That's why labor intensive jobs are usually moved to low paying countries like Bangladesh 20 years ago would be Thailand, where you get to have very labor intensive jobs and you move them where labor is chief, okay? And because labor intensive usually means not very many major skills. It also depends on management philosophy. Sometimes managers say, we like to pay relatively high salaries, attract the best employees, and to keep them. Now, other managers say, we pay the minimum, and if they don't like it, they can leave. Of course, the problem with paying minimum is that the employee will, in return, offer the bare minimum, okay? But it depends on management philosophy. Geographical location. Well, some countries are just paying a whole lot more and everything's more organized. Examples where salaries are high and everything's high for the same work will be Hong Kong. Hong Kong's salaries are a whole lot higher. Singapore are a lot higher. Japan, they're a lot higher. You got other countries in Dubai, they're going to be a lot higher. New York, they're going to be a lot higher. So, sometimes the geographical location will also determine, well, you know right here in Thailand, you're going to have, for the same amount of work, whether it's waitressing or whatnot, somewhere out in the country the salary is going to be low, and here in Phuket it could be easily double. At least when I talk to local people here, they tell me that, oh, I can come here in Phuket and earn twice the money than I would earn at my own place, okay? So even in the same country like Thailand, Phuket will be paying way higher and Bangkok will be paying way higher. Of course, costs are higher too, but that's a different story. Another important criterion for salary is company profitability. If the business is profitable, if it makes big profits, if it makes big money, it can pay higher salaries. If the business is in trouble, if it doesn't make money, even if they want to pay, they can't because they don't have the money, okay? So profitability is also very important. Size of a company. If you're working for a big, well-established restaurant, okay, or restaurant chain, I don't know, I'm just picking a name, Starbucks, you're probably going to get paid more than if you're working in some local restaurant right outside the campus, right? So probably a large company will have a better payment and better overall compensation and benefits. And two more to finish is employment tenure. If you've been working for 6 months, you're not going to be getting a lot of money. But if you've been working for 10 years or 15 years, if you got the experience, you got the knowledge, you got the skills, you're likely going to be getting a whole lot more than the regular or the average employee. And the last one is kind of job to perform. Does the job require high level of skill or a low level of skill? So, is it a highly skilled job like that of a lawyer, professor, doctor, architect, computer programming, or it's a low skilled job, okay? So, all of these are the factors which determine pay level. Is this good enough for today? Next time we'll finish the chapter. Okay, thank you.